Okay, I guess we'll,
You're good.
Okay, Lauren, shoot.
okay, I guess we'll have to just, if anybody can't hear, then just shout out because it's a little bit, it's muffled somewhat, but
We can hear you quite well.
okay. So we'll call this to order.
9:31. Great.
And is there any additions to the minute or to the agenda?
The only thing I see on the agenda that at the bottom, it says next council meeting, April 12th. That's probably the 19th, isn't it? The third Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my phone. Hold on, I'll double check.
Yeah, it is the 19th. Bob.
19th. Okay. All right,
Other than that, I'm okay with the agenda.
amend the date.
Okay, approval of the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, public hearing, there was nothing scheduled, Dean?
No, nobody's come forward, so.
Okay. So we got the minutes from the last meeting. Don't think, as far as I had, was just to kind of bring forward again the 9.4 of the residents that suggested the storage units at the beach 4 and 5, just so we don't forget it, that's all.
Okay. That's good.
Was there any other concerns on the minutes, Bob?
I don't have any concerns.
Ed?
No, I didn't have any.
Okay. So we'll make a motion to adopt them.
Yep.
All in favor?
I agree.
But- Okay, so going on to number 6, 6.1, that was the first draft that was sent from the county on the road use servicing agreement. So I guess what that says is that that was just kind of a first touch base with the road agreement, and since then there's been some changes. So if I'm correct, Dean, we'll bring that up in camera.
Yes, I've got the document printed, and you guys got a copy of it, right? I think Lauren and you guys got electronic copy from the lawyer last week
Yes, I received it from
of the
Suzanne.
change. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you all got it, so. Okay,
Okay, so 6.2 rail side design. Community hall concept design.
unless you guys want to have a discussion on it, you guys want to have a discussion about the issues and what you've learned in the process?
Well, I guess the only thing that I want to see is, when we're, first of all, I guess, when are we taking this to the, to a town hall to the public? But I think when we do take it to the town hall to the public, that we have to have, certainly cost estimates for the building, like, and exactly what we have for grants available to do it. And then also the cost estimates for operating, and what we would project as any kind of revenue and what the operating costs would be for the facility.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
pardon me. I agree, Bob. I think that's an important thing. And Dean, have you sent in the application or not yet?
No, we haven't sent the grant application in yet. The deadline is May 15th. But I've got a draft just of the concept plan plus the rates that we've received from the vendors from another project. So I know what the cost per square footage is, but I'm asking them to give me a rate just to get it to a shell with lockup the first year, because that's basically all the money we'll have guaranteed this year until we get the grant. And then after that, we can decide what the next phases will be. But we'd also talked about getting a group within the community other than council and the Ball Hall board to discuss, best placement scenarios, discuss engineering, discuss other activities that prior to, going ahead and making firm plans as to where things are going to be built. Did you guys want to proceed in that direction? And open an invite to the community to provide information or be part of it?
I think probably, in my opinion, it would have to have council on as well, Dean. And then it could be done as maybe as a committee, or it could preliminary. I think we have to put this out to the public to a town hall meeting to see if it's going to be a go-ahead. I mean, that's probably one of the first things we should be looking at.
Yeah, I guess from my standpoint, I think, if you ask anybody, would you like a new hall? The answer is yes. But then you say, would you be willing to have your taxes go up? And the answer would generally be no. So that's why we need to have these estimates and take it out to the public, I think, to determine whether or not they'd be agreeable if there is going to be a slight tax increase or whatever to have the hall and things like that. So I think before we get too far into this, I think I agree with Lauren that I think taking it to a public forum or whatever to determine whether or not it is going to be a go-ahead or not. And we need to do that soon, because if the answer ends up being no, then we got to figure out some other way to use this grant money.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So do you want us to put it out in the form of a newsletter? Like, I've got pricing for the estimates, and I can do just a spreadsheet with the drawings and the 3 phases that have been potentially calculated on those. I can call the other vendors that gave quotes to make sure we've got at least a balanced quote from at least 4 or 5 vendors, because all of them are local guys and they just gave a cost per square foot, but they didn't give a cost per square foot for getting the frame put up to lock up. So that's, completely different, because they'd basically be doing the groundwork, the earthwork, the foundation, the plumbing and everything before the actual pre-plumbing actually, and whatever else needs to be done for the building. So I'll have to ask them for an estimate on that. But
I think we can send it out, excuse me, I think we can send it out to, yes, put a package together like that, send it out to the public, but then I think we still need to have some kind of a Zoom meeting to let people orally voice their opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good, Bob, because I think if the package went out and people have concerns, and I think it should be fairly geared, some information in there, Dean, that this is a decision that is mostly in the public hands, because in the end, they're going to be, we don't know how this is going to go exactly right now, but we certainly don't want to burden people down with a big tax hike because we got a hall.
Yeah, we've got enough issues with the road sharing fees proposed or put forward by the county, and with increased education requisition and a few other things that we've got to deal with within our current budget constrictions. So it's really, if we can't do this with grant and can't do the project at all, But we don't want to build a shell and have it sit there for 10 years either, right?
Yeah,
So-
that would be a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would, finding projects to spend the 297,000 on wouldn't be hard within our current needs in public works and the boat launch, for example. If you guys wanted to redirect the funds, if the public doesn't want to go ahead, because we really haven't spent very much money at all on the concept, and we haven't spent much time on getting the pricing or for the concept. So
And if the new hall is a go, if people want it, then we could put together a committee to oversee it. But at this point in time, I think the issue with putting a committee together is that by the time we get a committee together and then have a town hall, are we running out of time to do this thing this year? So if this thing's going to be a go, like it needs to go quick.
Well, that was
You know,
that was my next question, Bob, is how soon can we get this formal meeting set up and bring all these issues ahead at once, so that we're not having 5 or 6 public meetings for different areas.
For newsletter, get it out next week.
When could we set up a date to have this public forum for the hall and everything else?
that's up to you guys. I mean, you.
The sooner
want
the better. I
maximum-
think we should get this thing going. It's either gonna be a yay or a nay, and the sooner that we do it, the better off we are.
I think so.
And also, just to add a little bit, the stuff that Railside Design has put together, and this, also the information that Dean has collected, that is part of what could be done in the future if it's not being done this year. So we have that important information now that can be all ready to go for the project. So that option, that's a good thing too, because there's lots of times when you get a situation where you have some grant money or other funding, and this would be in the drawer and you just pull it out and restart it.
Yeah.
So it's certainly not a waste of money that what happened with this design.
Yeah, I agree. And if it doesn't mean that if the hall's not a go this year, it doesn't mean that we're never going to have a new hall. We can't predict the future.
Yeah. And we do have, like Dean said, we do have some issues, like the $40,000 towards county. That's 10% of our municipal take on our budget. And then also the requisition for the landfill is in kind of the doldrums right now. Like it could potentially, it could double. And then, there's the cost of everything as well. So we got to kind of step like we're on thin ice a bit and just make sure that the public understands, that's all. And that we have to be fiscally responsible, because the general public sometimes doesn't know what the other complications there is with the finances, is trying to keep everything, on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I think that's good.
Let's if Aaron can get sort of as soon as
So I
Dean and
said I
Aaron
could
can get the
probably-
package together.
Yeah, so I said I could probably get the newsletter out like Friday next week. And then if you give residents the rest of the month to kind of mull over and think of their ideas, and then I just looking at the calendars, like maybe do it before Easter break comes up. Easter is, Good Friday's on the 7th, so you do like the 5th, so Wednesday again.
Yeah,
Would be
that's-
better to have, wouldn't it be better to have it on a weekend? Well, people can come out here to join in on this meeting?
Yeah, we can have it
Or an evening.
either one of you guys, whatever you want.
Well, it doesn't matter to me. Probably doesn't matter to these guys, but I mean, it's the general public that should be here to
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean, we've got access via Zoom, so some
Yeah.
people will be able to attend, but we should have a physical
Yeah,
location for them.
Do you do evening or a weekend?
I think on a Saturday myself.
And so we can look at doing after the Easter long or.
Yeah,
Or.
The
So the only
Saturday,
Saturday that I'm not available is I have to fly to Toronto for a funeral for my uncle on like the 15th of April or something, and anything other than that, I'm okay.
Yeah, and I'm pretty good too. I have some scheduled stuff, but not on the weekends. So that's good. And also, Aaron, in that newsletter, can you put the wording in there that we're looking for comments to be submitted back to the office?
Okay.
Or counselors, whatever. And then the counselors, if they get any call, we can submit it to the office too, so it's all collected properly.
I can see that, all right. Looking for feedback.
Okay, so
Saturday, you guys gonna,
what Saturday do you guys want? 15th?
No, I can't do the 15th.
Oh, you can't do
leave
the
the,
15th?
he's leaving.
What about?
That's the only one.
the-
I have to be in Toronto for a funeral for my uncle. So
What about the 8th on that weekend? On
is
Good
that
Friday?
Easter? Is
Yeah.
that good?
on
Yeah.
Easter weekend, the 8th,
Yeah, and
I
normally
guess that's on.
out here on the
Pretty
8th
good.
on the weekend, isn't it? Let's do it the 8th on the
I'm
weekend.
okay with that. I don't care if it's Easter weekend.
What time?
How long's the meeting gonna be?
An hour?
Say
The
10
only
o'clock?
issue is
Oh, you're
we
probably
can-
looking at at least a couple hours, Ed, I would think.
Well, let's fire it up at 10 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good.
now,
to
is that
me.
okay for Dean? Are you going away Easter weekend somewhere? Are you traveling or not?
Yeah, right now, probably not.
Okay, just in case somebody had to go travel for, one of us had to, if he had to travel to visit family or something like that.
Not yet, no.
We're
I have
good.
No plans.
We're good to go.
Okay,
Who wants, okay, so I have a motion to place a community hall concept plan or concept design, draft design in the March newsletter to share with the residents of the Summer Village of White Sands and have a public / Zoom meeting for the public to voice their opinions on April 8th, 2023 at 10 a.m.
Yeah, I'll move it.
All in favor?
I agree.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Dean, the next item there, 6.3, there was no information in my,
Oh, is that the Stephanie Kane's item?
yeah,
Yeah, so she's requested to be put on the agenda as an item just to get an update, but I did update it in the CEO report, but she's online right now. The instructions that council and the planner and myself have given Stephanie is that in order for council to go ahead on anything, we were willing to accept those large, 4,000-pound engineered blocks for the construction, but we need a drawing. So, and I offered her my assistance in the council meeting, but we need a drawing in order to approve anything so she can get started on it. And she's under the conception that to get a drawing done, or even to do a hand drawing, she needs approval and she needs our drainage plan. But that's not gonna happen because we don't have the engineer set up to do it yet, and we won't be doing a drainage study. It'll take an entire summer, and we'll get a report back in the fall. So if she wants to go ahead this year, she needs to present a plan so that she can get a local contractor to put those retaining wall blocks in, and then she can backfill in that pond area while it's frozen or semi-frozen. So, that's basically where we're sitting. So if Stephanie wants to unmute her and have a discussion.
I'll give Stephanie a hand.
She's on, she unmuted.
Hi, Steph.
Yeah,
Can you
I'm
hear me?
on, I'm on. Here's what I've been sending Dean kind of in the background. If a drainage plan is in the works, and I'm sure Alberta Environment's told you that needs to be done, I think that's from reading past agendas, council meetings, that needs to be done. And that was June 2022, that needed to be started, or you got notice from Alberta Environment. So I'm telling Dean in the background, I don't want to go ahead, place this in, you're not allowed to pump, and then Brian gets flooded or we get flooded, or 2 months from now, you're done your drainage plan and the retaining wall can't go there anymore. It needs to be moved. So I think we need to work more in a partnership here versus not, because I don't want to put that all in and then it has to be moved because you have to meet guidelines from Alberta Environment.
Can we guarantee her that that won't have to be moved if if it's on her
Yeah, well,
property?
we can, when we approve it, we can guarantee you're not gonna have to move it because basically council's given approval by motion of council to allow that retaining wall development to happen. And basically, the retaining wall development is just replacing the current structure and maybe pushing it an extra 5 or 10 feet out in the shallow area, so you'll have a good, strong retaining wall structure to backfill your yard, so that the collapsed retaining wall now that's happened is much further away from your house, so you can actually service your, I think it's your well or septic or something that's there, so you can service your stuff. So
Well, it kind of depends on what you're planning to put in there, because there's criteria and regulations that need to be met depending on what the project is. So if you're talking a French drain, how far does that need to be away from a foundation? I have no idea. What does the slope have to be? What's the 100-year flood line? Like, that all goes
well,
together.
there
with
is
this
no
project.
100-year flood line because we pump it out. So we've been pumping it out, from what I understand, we've been pumping it out for 10 years. So our goal, once you decide what you're gonna do, our goal is to maintain a certain level in that pond that doesn't exceed previous levels. And we're still prepared until we get other direction. We're still prepared to pump out that. What I'd like to do is sink a vertical drainage system and have a pump in there, like a float pump that will automatically turn on when the levels get to a certain level, so we can pump it out across and have a permanent line instead of a temporary line. Because right now the temporary line runs across your driveway, and I'd rather have a permanent line that runs through the culvert, so that we have a permanent line that pumps out to our field that takes it out into the MR. So that's our goal, is to have something permanent in place, but that doesn't stop you from putting a drawing to us so we can approve it. So that's the big issue. And we've got contractors around the area that can easily, we can bring in those large construction stones. Ed says they're about 4,000 pounds. And we can build a retaining wall, but we won't build it. It'll be up to you to finance that. But the first step is always to get development approval, and then, it doesn't, if it's an engineered block, we don't need the whole.
Dean, what happens if you don't get approval for your drainage plan?
But we don't need approval for the drainage plan.
Ultimately, could I just ultimately, just correct me if I'm wrong, but if you go ahead and put these blocks in, then we would work our drainage plan around what you've done, because we've approved that, as opposed to then making you change something for the drainage plan. We will cater the drainage plan to what we've approved for you, to allow you to do there.
Well, yeah, but what happens if they say a slope needs to be made around your drainage?
They
Whatever
don't
the
control
French
any
do.
of that.
They don't
The
get to,
Alberta
Alberta
Environment
Environment
doesn't
doesn't
tell how
get
we're
to
going
dictate
to
that?
maintain our water systems. There's certain elements for environmental reserves for
Yeah,
vegetation and wildlife, but this is not an environmental reserve. It was never an environmental reserve. It is a retention pond, it's basically been there for a long time. And the drainage wasn't set up properly when the lots were created because it is in a low spot at the end of a roadway, and they never put the roadway in. Back when they did the development, they would have been better off to fill it right in, build it right up, and then they would have been better off in the long run to have a road going right through and having ditches cut down the side and then having a proper drainage for the community. Unfortunately, there's a culvert or a couple culverts that, because it is a low spot, it drains into that area. But the only way to get the water out is for us to pump it out. And that's what we've been doing for 10+ years. So our drainage plan that we're gonna do for the whole community, we've got several done already, several areas completed. Will be to complete that plan and submit it, but we're not required to get their approval on it. It's just what we're doing, and they don't say that it has to be the certain slopes or anything like that. That's not their job. Their job is just to make sure we have something in place. So they don't give approvals or yes or no nods to it. Unless we were doing a direct drain from that pond directly into the lake, which then they would deny it, but we're not doing that. We're draining it into an MR.
You don't
So-
have to follow a stormwater drainage. Nothing like that.
No.
You would if it was in
There's certain
a
guidelines, but we don't know.
subdivision. And I guess, Stephanie, one of the biggest problems with Summer Village was, well, we were incorporated in 1980, but before that, it was in the early 60s when everything was put together. And with the development, like the small part of the village where you're at and I am at, there was never any drainage plan put in them subdivisions, and most of the village doesn't have any. The ones that basically have it is Craig Maynard's subdivision over at Ranch Estates there. And then there's a couple others that have a drainage plan, like there's one on Pheasant Terrace. But as far as the rest of the village, it just wasn't compulsory in them days and it never got done.
Yeah,
So now when-
I totally understand.
Yeah.
I get that. This has been like 2 years of getting that. But I do not want to go through the work just to have to move it because we're not meeting the guidelines that we're supposed to.
The only guidelines you're required to do is the municipal guidelines to get council approval. The rest of it doesn't impact you at all. It's our plan submitted to the Alberta government to let them know what we're doing with our water. It has
Okay,
nothing to
so
do with individual homes.
This is gonna change the storage capacity. And I'm changing the storage capacity because it's on my land. So now on a weekend, we get a rain, it floods out Brian, I've changed the capacity. Now who's liable for that? The village for flooding out our property and Brian's property because nobody was there to run the pump, nobody was watching it.
That's why our goal is to put a float pump. So it'll basically start pumping, or have 2 pumps that'll start pumping automatically. Otherwise, our staff will check to see if elevations are up and they pump like they've always pumped. So it's unusual to have as much rain as we did last summer, but it's not unusual to have spells where we get drainage through the culverts. And we have to be aware of that. But if your cement blocks are high enough and your berm is high enough to that, you won't ever get the water into your property. It'll go out the culvert before it'll start pumping before you'll ever have a problem on your yard.
So the culvert you're talking about is the one that is planned to be put where the temporary flat hose is when we pump. So it's just across the driveway there.
Yeah.
Put a culvert in there and then put a permanent line to connect up with the other one. So
But if
there's
you
no-
put a culvert through our driveway, the
everything-
guy on the other side, I forget their names, on the next street over, he's lower than us. So then it's gonna flood out his property.
No, we won't put a
No.
culvert there. We put a culvert on the main road because that's where we're pumping out to.
on Buffalo Road.
There's already
There's
one.
already a culvert on Buffalo Road, so just adding another culvert. It's just gonna make a circular.
yeah,
pattern
culvert.
then.
We have to put a
A
line through
culvert.
there.
We'll put a culvert to put a line through, not for drainage.
Oh. So where is the water gonna drain to?
Where
We'll pump
it's
it
been drained
out.
for the last 10 years, which is that outflow pipe on the other side of your property. It's basically east of your property into the MR. And then it flows down through the MR and then eventually works its way through the MR and down towards the lake. But I mean, the ground absorbs any water we put in well before it gets to the lake.
Okay.
But we just need a hand-drawn plan.
Yeah, we have the drawing. I'm just really scared about liability and not having this buttoned up and working together.
Yeah, Leanne will give us recommendations. We can get the LiDAR data to make sure we've got good drainage in the area. I've ordered the LiDAR data already for the whole community, so that's how we're gonna do the drainage plan. We're gonna get a couple survey points picked up, but for the most part, it'll be based on elevations within the community from the LiDAR maps.
What is it gonna be? What is that pond gonna be mapped as once you're through all these Alberta environment, all this mapping of the shorelines and rezoning those maps? What is that? What is it gonna be labeled as? Right now, what is it? Environmental open space?
The pond,
Yeah.
it's basically a catch basin. Has been for years, like a wetland. But it's not, the classification of it, I don't think I've ever seen anything on that, Stephanie.
Yeah, we like probably a year and a half ago, it's classified as a wetland as far as meeting all of the regulations. It's classified as a wetland as far as meeting regulations for what can and can't be done in there.
Yeah, the problem is we've been servicing it as a stormwater drainage pond, obviously, with a drainage program that we've been pumping out of because our culverts flow into it. So basically they've been servicing it, even though it is a wetland, just to keep the residents from flooding or keep them happy. So that's the history, so.
Is that gonna change on the new zoning that you're going through? Will that,
No, we've got 4 pumping licenses within the village. And some of them are up for renewal, but that license has been there for years and years and years to pump out of that pond.
yeah. Okay,
But I do understand your hesitation, Stephanie, because it's something that has to go through the development officer, because there is a piece in the land use bylaw that says nobody can fill in their property that it may affect someone else's. Like
right, and the drainage needs to stay on your own property.
it's
through
right
it all.
in there. But
Um,
you're in a position where that pond is, if you look, like just physically look, like from Aspen Ridge subdivision over, all the way over to First Street, or pardon me, Second Street, and then also 4th Street, and then all the way up to Lakeview Avenue, the drainage all comes to that area.
Yep, I know. I walked Alberta Environment through that, through all of that. It all, and as more gets developed, more fills into that space. And that space currently is 8 feet away from the foundation of the house. 8 feet.
Mhm. Well, actually, in the early days, it was the house wouldn't have been able to be built there because that whole pond extended to where you're beyond your garage there, and it was filled in a long time ago. The first owner of the property had got rights to do that from the developer that put the subdivision together, and his name was Ernie Salt, but he had papers when he did it because that hill across Buffalo Road from your garage there, that big dip in the hill, that's where all the fill came to put it in. Because that was much
Well,
larger.
yeah, will Leanne be able to recommend how far away that like a stormwater pond should be from a foundation?
She probably won't do anything unless she has facts from, she'll have to dig up the facts on that.
I've
Step.
scoured hours trying to find, and it's all to do with the 100-year flood lines.
Yeah. She may be able to go through environment and whatever the new name is, recreational or whatever. But also she may be able to have the same kind of thing that's happened in Stettler or other communities that she's close with as far as development officers. Like that information would be able to be dug up. Because I have no idea for you to even give you an idea what the distances are.
Mhm.
Well,
Okay,
normally 30 meters from any water bodies. But
30
obviously
meters.
30
We'd
meters,
have, we'd
I
have
know.
to fill in our whole property.
if you let me finish, please. It's 30 meters and that's basically takes into consideration all high water marks. However, the subdivision was built a long time ago and the pond, instead of filling it in and raising the elevation before they allowed people to develop the lots, they've obviously let them move it closer. So there won't be any specific guidelines as to how close a house can be to a water pond. I mean, ideally you want the house to be above the level of the potential floodplain of the water pond. But in your case, you want to build your berm up so it's, and backfill your berm. And we can, on the roadway side of the Buffalo Way, we can put a horizontal well with holes in a perforated culvert and pump out directly to the outflow valve or outflow line. And we can maintain the water level that way. That's really our only option. Because back when the property was built, they didn't have the same considerations. So if you look at any of our other developments, it's very rare. There's a few cases around Earl's Way and that subdivision, but it's very rare to have a house foundation closer than 30 meters, which is 90 feet from any water body. And that's the new subdivisions. But you've got an older subdivision and the approvals were made way before some of these guidelines were put in place. So.
Yeah, just if we're doing this, then I'd.
So
prefer to
Stephanie,
do it as
if you've
right as
got the
possible.
plans written up, can you send them to Leanne and then we'll carry on from there?
Yeah. Well, I'll send them to Dean, I guess, to send to
To
Leanne.
Dean, and then he can get them to Leanne. Yes, please.
Yeah. Dean, do you want them like with the property lines marked out or just like a rough drawing?
Well, if you've got a real property report, which you should have.
No, I don't. I do not have a real property report.
Well, that was requirement of your purchase, so.
No, it's not. It's not in
okay.
Alberta.
Then you'll have to designate your property line somehow, either get a survey done or something.
It's all marked out already from prior
Okay.
surveys. The metal's
So
in the ground.
What I would do is do a hand drawing,
Yeah,
put
we
your
got that.
foundation in and everything, and then submit where you'd like the berm to go up to the edge of your property line on Buffalo Way, and then as far away from your house as you think. I don't know the depth of the pond. It could only be 2 feet, 3 feet. I don't know. But at the distance you'd like it away from the house, ideally, we want it 25 feet plus, just so you don't have any soil stabilizations issues and drainage issues. And then submit it to me and Leanne will look at it and make a recommendation. And the recommendation is to go with those engineered blocks, the big ones, like the 4,000 pound ones. So that all they have to do is dig it down to a decent base and then just lay those in and they're never gonna move. And then you can backfill with your material. And if you do it now while it's frozen or semi-frozen, you'll be able to pump it out without any problem while you're doing it and backfill, so you won't have any standing water and won't turn into a mud slurry. But if you wait until April, May, you're pushing your, the risks get higher for sure. And
Mhm.
we can't pump the whole pond out and guarantee there won't be any rain in the meantime. So we won't be able to assist in any of that.
Okay, maybe I'll give you a call later, Ed, and just run these plans by you if you're okay with that.
Yeah, you got my phone number.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Oh, I just wondering where that, where we are with the flood claim as well. I know you put an update that there's no update, but we're 8 months into this claim.
No. There's no update.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Moving on to financials. Do you want to take us through that, Dean?
Okay, okay. So this is just your month. The first one is your budget year to date, basically, and your actuals, because we're running on a temporary operating budget right now. We're well within our 2 months guidance from previous years, so it's not a big deal there. There's nothing that's outstanding on that. So did you have any questions on that first one, the year end?
I'm okay.
No, that's fine, Dean.
It's just a summary like Bob wanted, so no details. Then you've got your checklisting, which council has signed off and looked at. If there's any questions on there.
The one
I
question,
had
I
one.
guess, disaster services went up a fair bit, right? That was just because we got a lot larger requisition from them, right?
Yes, we get, every year we're gonna get a larger requisition depending on what programs they put in place, but they should also be applying for provincial grants for that program. So,
Okay, thank you.
This one, municipal property consultants. It's got payment Camelot charge. What's that, Dean?
So variability. So that's your assessor.
that's
So
your,
that's your assessor
Oh,
and
okay.
the program he uses and
it's their software program for assessment, and we pay an admin fee because they have to buy a license technically for every municipality, but they take their main license and divide it by the number of municipalities by the assessment. That's why it's only $500 instead of $5,000 a year.
Okay, good.
They
Thank
prorate it.
you. Okay, the bank rec.
Okay, so the bank reconciliation, this was January's to the end of January. We have a current balance on account of 967,000, and then we were getting monthly contributions because we've got a lot of people signed up with the TIPS plan, so we're getting roughly 20,000 a month. And then the total funds available, we have restricted grants and unrestricted grants that are still sitting in as cash. So the total amount of available money that we have to spend is 815, 312 at the end of the month, January. So on the other side is February's. So in February, like council passed a motion in February, we did move $600,000 into RRSPs. It's a $300,000 redeemable for a year and a $300,000 locked in for a year. So we get with the redeemable, we can cash it in at any time, and we can get the interest up to that end of that month. So so that will now show up in the next month's report. So we've moved some of this cash at the end of so we had $967,000 change And we moved 600,000 of that into those GICs because they're paying 3.9% and 4.5%, I think. So it'll help us with our budget a little bit. It'll defray some of our costs. So that's where we're sitting at the end of February.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good.
So that's
Thanks
it, financials.
for
As
getting
far as tax collection goes, we only have 3 or 4 parties or homeowners, property owners that haven't paid any taxes in the last 24 months. And so all of those people will be sent a letter right away, and we'll be registering a caveat on one of them because he's now, I think, 26 or 28 months. And I just can't get a hold of the guy for whatever reason. And we've sent to the address they have on file. So we've tried social media to try to find them. Other than that, our tax collection is doing really well. We collected on 90% of outstandings, so we don't have that many outstandings. So we're good there.
Dean,
Yep.
phone me on that one or email me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so for the financials, we can move them all at once.
Yeah.
So we need a motion to accept.
I would make a motion to accept the financials as presented.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so council reports. Ed, do you have anything?
Just the one I wanted to make a note of was the fishing derby.
Oh,
Went
yeah.
went over very well. I talked to the Councillor Justin Stevens, and he was requesting that he wants White Sands to be more involved. So I've talked to the President Tamara, and she will be getting a formal invite from the town of Stettler to come to our next meeting to be involved in next year's fishing derby. And that meeting is supposed to be held in May.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great event actually for the whole lake. And it was all put together really good. And thanks for your help on that, Ed. That was good. And you too, Dean, as far as manning the hall and doing what you could, because I know you're looking after Roshan as well.
Yeah, we had a fair amount of people here involved from White Sands. And yeah, they were happy to help. They enjoyed it.
Okay. Bob, do you have anything from your committees?
A couple things. One is, yeah, I'm just glad that Ed sort of, I had, the Hall Society wanted to be involved with the fishing derby next year, so they just wanted to make sure that they had the contact information of the people that were running it or whatever. The only other thing is that I sat in on a very interesting meeting about lake stewardship and water levels, and it was to do with Moose Lake and Muriel Lake up around Bonnyville, and it was very interesting that the Muriel Lake is basically lost about 4 meters of water depth over the last few decades, and talking about how they just haven't kept up their culverts properly, and there's, you know, things like that, and beavers and things, and there's just not proper drainage into the lake, and it just really drove home the point that we need to really, you know, have a proper drainage plan and to make sure that things are done properly around the lake.
Okay, thanks, Bob. The only thing I had, well, it was a question, I don't know, is the Linda from the EMS was supposed to come out and register that AED, but I know she got delayed. Some, you know, they just have stuff popping up all the time. But has anything been done there? Do you know?
I don't know. Tim was supposed to get a call from them, but I haven't heard anything back from them.
Yeah, I did phone Tim a few days ago and he said there was no contact yet. So It'll be
And,
coming.
and the Hall Society wants to be involved in the training of that, you know.
Yeah, I let Linda know and she's gonna set it up with paramedic come out and do a training session. And then we can also put it on Zoom and record it, so then we can have it on our website as well, if that Aaron, would you be able to, would that be possible?
It could be definitely possible, just need to let me know when, where.
Right,
We'll probably encourage all staff to take the training anyways, so we'll probably have a session live as well. So we'll have a live and a recorded Zoom session.
right. Okay, thanks. And I did get a phone number for a person that looks after the Haynes Recreational Hall out there that is brand new. Jerry Linkert gave it to me, and I think the hall is only maybe 3 years old or something like that. But it's probably worth taking, depending on how things go. I know that I was involved with the community hall in Stettler when it was built, and part of the planning was to go to other halls and see what was there. It doesn't mean a design change on the structure itself. It just means maybe some interior, which we would have time to do if it goes ahead. So
So
that
which
would be
community
possible.
was
Haynes,
HYNES.
yeah,
HAINES?
Over by Joffrey.
Okay,
yeah, it's just on the way to Red Deer
okay.
Highway 11. And was there anything on rec lease yet, Dean?
As far as new information, no,
Yeah.
he's given us what we need to do, but as far as getting a contractor for the rec lease, no, I had tried to line up the former CEO, Melissa, and she was willing to look at it, and she was gonna submit a proposal, but I didn't get anything back from her yet, and I did ask PCPS, but their rates are $65 an hour, so it's gonna be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range for
Right.
the shoreline documents. So I have put it out to some other parks and rec planners, but nobody's got back to me with pricing yet, so.
Okay. So I guess that leaves us with your report there. Has everybody read Dean's report?
Yes, I did.
Yep.
Okay, is there any questions, or Dean, did you want to go through it?
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, if you guys can read it,
I'm good with it.
there's not a lot of big changes. The one thing that Roshan Sands is willing to consider with the rec lease, and they just had their meeting yesterday, is they are willing to get together with you to do it combined and hire Leanne. So Leanne is a planner, and she can hire a staff member to help her put together the shoreline plans and rec lease, because we've got the documents, we just have to refresh them. And Leanne has a lot of experience with planning here, and if we can figure out how Roshan Sands and White Sands can work together, hire Leanne and split the cost in half to do the shoreline plan, that might be another, I didn't add that in here, but that was just came up last night. So as far as the other items that aren't in here, I met yesterday morning with the group that was analyzing the traffic study RFPs or proposals that came in. There was 4 engineering firms that came in. There was WSP, there was Stantec, not IPL, ISL Engineering, and Castle. Castle was the third. Unfortunately, Castle is a smaller firm, and their prices were very high because they were using engineers for the whole study. And whereas the other firms were setting it up with engineers and using mostly techs and junior engineers to do the work. So the prices came in more reasonable. So they originally budgeted or set the grant at 75,000. And right now the prices came back for the two closest highest bids are under 50. So our portion of that will be much lower if they don't get the grant. And right now they're leaning towards a firm that they already do business with at the county that came in about $3,000 less. So you'll get a report in the next 10 days or so that I'll send to council, and council can vote on accepting that. We should do a final budget preparation as well, because that'll have to be included. So that's the only other thing in here that I wasn't able to get in this report.
Okay, thanks, Dean. All right, so.
Yeah, it was a good, very good report, Dean. Thank you.
Okay.
Who wants to move the reports?
Yep.
I will.
Sure. Ed said first, next time.
Oh, okay,
I agree. I accept it.
you bet. Okay, so business, Alberta Municipal Affairs. There's a lot of acronyms in there.
Yeah, so they are doing an increase to their budget for municipal affairs in the Alberta budget, and they're going to be distributing proportionately based on the increase in the Alberta budget for municipalities. So we did, although we didn't get an increase in our capital funding, they did commit money to that new local government framework, fiscal framework that is going to start in 24, which will basically replace MSI capital and MSI operating. But the good thing about this budget is they for this year only, they've doubled our MSI operating. So whatever we got in 2022, I think was 12,000 something dollars. We're going to get double that for us to use. And so that'll help defray some of these additional costs as well. So we can use it for things that we need to do for the MSI operating, which is administrative or reports. So if we need to spend some of that money for the shoreline plan, the rec lease and all that, we have an extra $12,000 this year. So that'll help. So, and that's basically that.
Okay, thank you. And then the 9.2 education property tax.
Yeah, so this is information on the calculations. And then so this is the report that for the requisitions, it showed the summer villages. So on page, well, flip it over, on the second page is the summer village of White Sands. It shows that there's going to be a reduction in our overall education requisition of 1%. However, when we got the requisition, it actually went up almost 2%. So this report from the requisition based on equalized assessment didn't end up being right. So we actually got the requisition last night. We downloaded them, and it has our education requisitions actually going up. So that's not good.
Is there a way to challenge that, or is that
No.
set in stone?
It's based on equalized assessment for everybody. So they're trying to balance it out, and ours was supposed to go down, but it's comparative to everyone else. Some communities like Sunset Point was supposed to go up 10%. But this is a straight through. So we basically just pass this cost directly to the residents because we don't control the requisition. So it has nothing to do with us. The only thing we can do is have a 0.5 instead of a 1% for non-collection of requisitions. So if people don't pay their taxes, we still have to pay every quarter. So we can reduce the additional requisition down as small as we possibly can to not impact taxpayers, but we don't control this at all. This is just the requisition for schools. So it is going to increase our tax levy requirements by a slight bit.
Somebody has a problem with that? Talk to your MLA, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
basically, I think they set it up, if I'm not correct, Dean, is that they take the equalized assessment and then they
Yeah.
just put a mill rate to it, and that's how they do it.
That's exactly correct. So they take the equalized assessment of the province, they compare the actual assessments of the municipalities, and then they levy based on that. So,
Yeah.
so our
Okay.
levy went up. Okay, and it is sort of related to the next item, which is our assessment growth. So as I mentioned to council in our previous meeting, we did have assessment growth because we had new developments. So we had $2.6 million in new developments. We had a reduction in our vacant residential because we had new developments on those properties. But we also had a reduction in our commercial improvements because we lost our commercial store. So that was just $100,000 in assessed value. But overall, our growth was 2.338. So $2.3 million in growth. Plus they factored in, and this had to do with the provincial factoring, they factored in an inflation increase because the overall inflation of the province was over 5%. They have ended up factoring in an inflationary increase in our assessment of 2.9% for residential and 2.7 for vacant and 7.8 for that's just exempt public, so it doesn't give us any new taxes. So farmland, of course, didn't go up, and neither did commercial. So we don't have any commercial anymore. So the positive thing is if it'll help us maintain, if we maintain the same mill rate, it'll increase the amount of taxes available to council to offset some of these other costs. So I mean, it'll help. So we ended up with a total increase of just about $5.8 million between the growth rate and the inflation increase, and that's assessment. So and
Okay.
then in the summary report, you can see the summary, how it's broken down, which is the next report. So it shows basically the same thing I told you, $5.3 million increase, and then the improvement reduction, and then the total. And then it shows the taxable total, which is the total land. The total land taxable is 65.2 million, and the total improvements taxable, which is all your houses, buildings, it's 59.7 million. And then the total is 124, almost 125 million for the overall assessment of the community. So the next sheet basically shows if you, so that's.
Dean,
Yeah.
sorry, I just wanted to say on that assessment summary, when you look at the bottom, the properties there, so the taxable, like 404 properties, that's residential. And then, so the total of parcels at the total is 451, but it's not 451 because it is, but there's also some linear taxes that go in there, as well as a lot of our municipal reserve, environmental reserve, whatever, all has separate numbers on them as lots too. So basically the 404 is where we're sitting as far as lots.
Yeah.
Just for your information.
Yeah.
Bob.
So
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the only thing that changed was we used to have 100. It was over 100 vacant residentials. Now we've got 97, and we had 300 residential improvements, and now we've got properties with 306 with improvements. So I mean, they did increase the because we've got exempt residential, which is we've got 11 records on that. We've also got exempt public, which is primarily our MRs. So we've got 36 MRs or properties that are acting as MRs that are accessible. If we ever decided to sell any of those, we can sell them and convert them into, or we can subdivide parts of those MRs with the developer or sell portions of them to create more tax base. We've also got land that's set aside as vacant land that we can add additional lots to through developer programs like phase 3, and then we can increase our tax base and increase the assessment and reduce the overall tax burden per person. So there's options for us. Unlike Roshan, they don't have as many options. So.
Okay, thank you, Dean.
Okay. So then the pie charts that are attached are just a breakdown on the change in since 2013 up to 2022, the assessment. There was a drop in the I'm not sure which year there was a little bit of a drop, but we have on 2021 we had a number of non-residential that show up in the chart and then disappear. So I'm not sure why that is showing up in 2021. So, and then the rest of the charts are just basically showing a breakdown. The third page or fourth page is that's showing our overall assessed value increase. And that's for, so that's a total taxable assessment has been going up slowly over time as new development comes on board. And then, so that's pretty much that report. So that does have an impact on our budget deliberations because if we have enough assessment growth in the community, it means the tax rate doesn't have to go up, which means less of an impact per individual homeowner. So.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Okay, Piers Docks boat lift policy.
So I amended it because now residents, what we're getting understood from the Alberta environment, that they don't have to do that TFA process this year because essentially we're working on our rec lease and we kind of have a good idea of all the number of boats and lifts that are out on our shorelines. So they don't have to go through the Alberta government. So I just removed all the TFA stuff out of the policy. And I also lowered, because I know you guys had said that we can lower the price this year. So I lowered it to $50 annually. So residents will still have to do their registration annually through only the municipality. And then every year they'll get a tag to put on their structure to say that it's been registered. So this year it's a yellow tag.
Or a sticker on the.
Or a sticker, not gonna just do it, okay, so a sticker or tag, so far this year is a tag, because we have those. So it'll be a yellow tag, and it will say, it won't have any like personal information, it'll be where the address of the boat is, like not the name, and then some coding on our end of how we know whose is whose kind of thing.
And we'll also have an ID that we'll create individually based on the tax roll plus the registration number. So that we'll have a unique ID that we can identify. And then the homeowner just has to, our property owner just has to attach that with the zip tie to their boat lift or dock.
I will fix this when I get back to the office. I missed that one. That's supposed to change to $50.
Yeah.
And
We did reduce it to $50 in the policy itself. We just have to change the form.
And we need GPS coordinates of each structure as well for our records. I have that somewhere on here, right here. So a lot of people can just with their phones can drop a pin on like Google Map or whatnot and just get the coordinates. Then we just know where everyone's at as well. Yeah, so that's how it is. So I'll change that $75 thing, but
I have one question going back to the policy, like.
yeah.
It's basically the village is considered the semi-waterfront owner. And so they get a say in who puts docks there. So do they consult with the people that have the cottages on the lakefront to approve who gets to put a dock in front of their place?
At the moment,
Not currently, so if you guys want to change that, we can change that and resubmit it. Because
What-
Roshan
what-
does have that where we do
I-
have a couple areas where we do have a couple areas where the residents are actually right on the reserve and not on the MR. So they're on the LOC, we have several sections. And there's some areas where there is no boundary between the MR and the actual reserve, so we've had that question come up from a number of residents, so if council wants to consider that and add that into the policy where we have a form we can quickly
yes,
change,
Roshan Sands has one.
and
I
so,
would like to have that. You know, I do know there are a few residents who have had people put docks in front of their place at, you know, people from that are not on the lake, and you know, there has been some discourse, and so not that we don't want everybody to have access to a dock, but you know, you do want people to have some sort of say that if you don't want somebody having their dock in front of your place, that you're having a, you know, a major dispute with about something, you know?
yeah. And we've also wanna consider encouraging one dock, many owners, so like many users. So we wanna make it available if somebody decides they wanna partner with their neighbor, they can actually put it on the property line coming off the lake, and then those two neighbors can share with their entire family if they've got boats versus sea-doos versus, they can have a number of slips on their dock. So we
Yeah.
wanna offer that functionality that we can improve that. So we can discuss that at if you guys want to, and we can present a similar plan. But we're gonna have to address that in the rec lease anyways, but we can have
I
our.
would, could you send me what Roshan's policy is on that? And then we
Yeah.
could maybe put that on the, send it to us, and then we could put it on the next council meeting for discussion.
It's also on their agenda package from last night. If you want to check on on their website,
Okay,
it's right in
Okay.
there.
We'll
I'll
send
take a
you
look.
a copy.
but would it be okay to put that as business for the next meeting after we've seen the wording?
Okay. Because people are
Aaron,
looking at the bid already and asking questions and wanting to get it done, so. I've been
Aaron-
holding people off, sorry.
Okay, so the next meeting, we can either put it on the next budget meeting and deal with it there as policy change, or we can wait till the February 15th or no,
not 15th.
12th, 13th?
19th, April?
Oh, it's April, February. I'm lost in my months right now.
April 19th.
April 19th. So would you rather do it at the end of March here? When we do our budget meeting, we could just add it to that?
yeah, it'd be fairly fast
Okay,
discussion, I would think.
okay, otherwise,
But it's only gonna be a discussion. We're not going to be setting a new policy on this.
Well, would you-
Because I would like to see the public involved in this at our public forum. Because the backlot owners better have something to say about what's going on here right now.
Yeah, and it's, the thing is, I think if we
Everybody.
knew who has a lift, or, so on a dock with 5 lifts or whatever, which we have, are everyone gonna have to register their lift, Dean?
well,
Or do
that's
you
up-
just take the dock?
that's up to you. I mean, each lift that's attached to the dock could have their own tag. And then they'd be all registered, but, it's gonna be tougher for us to enforce. We have to have a policy in place if you guys want to do that. It just means more
Right.
enforcement.
So Ed, another thing, I had Aaron just count up how many people were lakefront and how many people were not lakefront owners that had registered so far, and it's about 50%, 50-50. And I guess the other part is, Aaron, I wanted to let you and Dean know we can't forget about that part of the policy that came out from environment, was that they missed in their first bunch of documents that the piers or the docks had to be 6 meters apart, but they changed it so it means 6 meters apart from, if you have a 10-foot lift that's that width on your dock, then it goes from the lift to the next person's lift on their dock. So that really took care of a problem, because otherwise we would have had practically just about zero clearance there. So that's been changed.
Yes, so in their policy, it said that they have to be reading the dock mooring standards and the disturbance one, I forget what it's called.
Right. And
And
the
then
other
they
part,
also have to read the swimming policy that you guys have as well. Because no boat
Right.
launch, no boat docks are supposed to be in swimming areas either.
right. I had another question because I get asked a few times. So if there is a dock owner and he has 5, like there's one down in CJ, one there's 5 or 6 lifts on a dock, then if it's beyond the standard, do they have to get a TFA?
As far as I know,
We have to talk to Cody on that, because
Yeah.
Ashley's gone.
yeah,
It's still confuzzling.
Yeah, so that would be a question we should ask, because I think the last I talked to them, they would have to if they don't follow the standard. But I don't know what's changed now and how much control the village is gonna have, so we gotta be
But-
careful.
What I got from Ashley before she left was, because I was asking these types of questions, and she said that essentially we are in charge of it. We have the idea of what's all gonna be on the shores. We're gonna get clarification from Cody, but what I understood that no one would need to go get that TFA and client ID again, because it'll be on our rec lease.
Okay,
and if we do get complaints, then they may have to step in, but
Yes.
for the most part, the municipality, through whatever means you guys want to do through letter writing or permissions to eliminate any of these complaints, then we won't have to get Alberta Environment involved in enforcement.
right. Okay,
So I have
Motion.
a motion to move the policy to the next budget meeting.
No, we can
No?
approve this as is, and
Oh.
we can amend it at the next
Oh, okay.
budget.
Do you want to approve it? With the changes?
Yeah.
Phew.
so with Roshan Sands and their shoreline management plan or whatever we're putting together, the idea is to make them identical documents.
Well,
Would that
the format and templates and everything will be identical, the
Yeah.
maps and the policies might be slightly different, but overall they'll be pretty much the same.
Yeah, so we have it the same price. I'm using the same application form for both of them, just changing the logos and some other wording and whatnot. And then like the checklist, like you have a swimming policy that we want everyone to read before they submit their stuff. Roshan Sands doesn't have a swimming area policy kind of thing. So, yeah, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, that's good, because I think, we're kind of close to Roshan Sands as far as people visiting back and forth. As close as they can be would be the better, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
thank you.
no problem. Who wants to move that with the amendments?
I will, but
Okay.
it's, it's not a final document yet, as
No.
long as,
We'll
Yeah.
have to,
all in favor?
I agree.
Okay. So offer to purchase
okay.
for the regional landfill. Do you want me to speak on this, Dean, or?
Yeah, so this has already happened, but they need, because they went through the county to do the purchase, but we still, as a member of the board, we can't make the Waste Management Board cannot own property, so it has to be in the name of the county, and essentially, but the board members or the municipalities on the board have to pass a motion within their councils to approve these purchases. The land hasn't changed hands, but they made the offer to purchase. So what we need is a motion on the books and that basically gives approval to go ahead with the purchase, and then, so they have it on their.
I think probably some of the history on this too. I know I did talk to Ed because he's on the board there, but we tried, the landfill authority tried to purchase that piece of property probably 95, 96 and somewhere in there. And the owners didn't want to have anything to do with it. But what it basically does, so where the existing landfill is now, it's at the quarter section to the directly east of the landfill. And it's owned by some farm people. And it's surprising, like I just about had a bird when I looked at this document, because that quarter section, $800,000. And I know when we were looking at it before, mind you, it was a long time ago, it was nowhere, it was probably a quarter or less than a quarter of that. But that's the price of property in the county of Stettler. It's unbelievable, some of that stuff that's going on. So the 800,000 for the property, actually, the landfill authority was told a few years back, quite a few years back, that they were lacking in saving reserves. And so they boosted that. And all this 800,000 is coming from reserves. So it's nothing that hasn't been saved for. And it'll extend the life of landfill like unimaginable, because of the way you can do mounds and stuff. Like we're talking years and years and years and years. We'll all be, whoever's in the room will all be dead before that thing's full with this new quarter section. So it's a good acquisition, but it was damn expensive.
Yeah.
I think that's the going, I think 5,000 an acre from what I hear is the going rate for farmland.
Yeah, depending on the land, but I just about crapped.
Yeah, it's what it's, I think that's the fair price for today. I mean, it's ridiculous amount of money, but I think it's the going rate.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I would make the motion that we sign this document.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the first one is moved by Councillor Huff that the Council of the Summer Village of White Sands approves the County of Stettler number 6, February 13, 2023 offer to purchase and the acquisition of Northwest 3440 19 west of the 4th Meridian by the County of Stettler number 6 as trustee for and on behalf of the municipalities comprising the Stettler Waste Management Authority as beneficial owners. And the other one is it the same thing? Maybe not. Okay. Moved by Councillor Huff that the Council of the Summer Village of White Sands authorize the Chief Administrative Officer together with the chief elected officials to sign and enter into a trust agreement pursuant to which the County of Stettler number 6 will hold the title to the Northwest 3440 19 west of the 4th Meridian in trust for the benefit of the municipalities comprising the Stettler Waste Management Authority. Sound good?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
good. So do we have to vote on those each separately?
No, you can vote on them together.
Vote on them together?
yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
in favor.
Dean, can Ed as deputy sign that, or do they have to
Yeah.
wait?
No,
Okay.
no, I can get Ed to sign it, so I'll print them off and we can sign it and I can seal it and send it in.
Okay. Thank you. So all that waste management stuff's looked at. For correspondence, number 10.1 budget, municipal affairs.
9.4 is, let's see, what is this one? Waste Management Authority, land transfer, okay.
You're gonna pass all that, you're in 10.
Yeah,
Just a overview, Dean, is all we really need.
this is the elected official document? No, just keep going.
I'm still going.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of paper.
So this is
Oh,
the.
right here.
The part where municipal affairs, I highlighted the part which is, talks about the doubling of the MSI operating funding to all the municipalities in the amount of $60 million. And that the MSI program will be finishing, and we can find more details. But their commitment to the local government framework has been updated, and that's it. So that's just the update on this funding. So that's the letter.
That letter, the next one
And
is.
okay, and then the other one is, we don't really have a lot of this designated industrial, but we do have a very small portion. And it just sets the rate, so we only collect $38 or $40. So we don't have anything there, so, but I just attached it as information.
What is that?
Well, designated industrial is, I think the total assessment, it has to do with the, what they call linear now. So
Oh,
basically,
okay.
it is all of our linear, so natural gas, power, telecom, it's all combined under this total assessment value. And then we apply this designated industrial. We still levy our standard, we don't levy the school requisition, but we levy our standard municipal against it, but this is the other designated industrial, so it's basically, we're allowed to collect $36.64.
Big spenders.
Which is basically a requisition, so.
It'll buy our coffees next week.
Yeah, well, we don't get the money, it goes to the province, so $36 we collect on behalf of the province.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Okay. And then there was, the next one was Summer Village Association of Alberta, just a new executive.
So
She looks very well qualified.
yeah, she's been around for a long time. She's got a 32-year career in municipal government, and she went through the vetting process. And I'm not sure if she was a Summer Village administrator or village administrator. I've talked to her several times, and she's excellent to work with. And I've talked to Mike Pashnak about some of the issues with funding, as well as some of the issues with enforcement of stormwater and enforcement of sanitary programs. So when people are, we still have some sanitary outflow, we still have some drainage outflow issues, and all the new properties now have to have a cement tank, but we still have some enforcement of previous owners that still have, I think they're plexiglass tanks, or no, they're fiberglass tanks. So we still have some of those, and we probably have some existing Arizona fields that we're gonna have to tackle. So I talked to Mike, and there are several summer villages that have gone about this and have new policies in place and new bylaws. And there's been some legal challenges as well. So I'll bring those forward at a later date. So, but that's the new lady.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then we have the tree grants.
Yeah, so this was also sent out by the Summer Villages Association. There's a number of, that this group does these studies for, as we talked about doing our tree study, but there's also an attached grant component to it. So there's a number of tree grants in the second part of the document, which is, there's a Tree Canada Foundation, and then there's a number of eligible programs that we can apply for, and TD Canada also has a greening program, as well as the number of grants. So hopefully if we put our tree planting program into force, we will be able to access all these plans or programs to get some funding for improving replacing our poplar trees with trees that'll last longer, so.
I think this is a great thing.
And that's it for.
So the only thing we have to do is go in camera and to discuss the road
Oh, no,
maintenance.
you have to accept. the
Oh, sorry,
correspondence.
accept the correspondence.
So who wants to accept the correspondence?
Yep.
All right, now. They go. in
Thank you. So we need a motion to go in camera, please.
11:02.
I will make the motion to go in camera.
Yeah, and we should note the three items. The one item is the County of Stettler road agreement. That's been prepared by our lawyer to send back, and the letter. And then the second item is an HR, previous HR employee litigation issue that we'll have to put in there. And the third is the finalized budget, but I mean, we're just gonna discuss some situations that may impact our budget that are of legal nature, so. So. So you-
I motion that we go out of that meeting and be adjourned.
Okay, at 12:07 PM.
Thank you.
No,
And then-
8:07.
107.
Sorry,
Bob in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I started curling Bondsville this afternoon.